say, okay, this is how you should study, this is how you should go about. But the information is pieced in different books. So if you want to know about the mind, you go to this article, this book about the mind. If you want to know about how to study, you go to another book on how to study. So I had to bring all the forces together and put them in one book. And using my experience and research for 2 years, from 2017 to 2019, then I published it this year.
Right, so let's get into this particular book. And before we get into the book, please explain the cover. There's a book. There's a what? There's a watch.
There was a watch.
There's also a lamp.
A lamp.
With some lights there.
Yes.
Is there any explanation?
There is.
Yeah, please,
UMUNTU JOBA.
You know, when you were looking at the cover and you're saying there's a lamp, I'm thinking of a long night, a watch. You're looking at the time, how many hours before the exam. I feel like this
UMUNTU JOBA.
Yeah.
So now the concept behind the cover, if you just look at it, it's a bit like dark like that.
Yes.
So it implies someone studying, and then they use, when there's no ZESCO, you can still use a candle.
Like the last 3 days.
Yes.
We haven't had power.
Yeah, so before I get to that, I just want to explain something that I think you'll find interesting. When we lost our father, okay, that was when I was in grade 11. So in grade 12, when I was studying for all the grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 preparation, where we were staying, there was no electricity. So for 1 year, I studied under a candle. So for nowadays to see people saying, no, ZESCO kulibe so lero since a JOBA, it's something not, I think for other parents, I think they just need to smack that child. Because I'm telling you, you have to do whatever it takes to study. Okay, you have to do whatever it takes to just take that information in your mind. So I just wanted to share that piece of information, which is on chapter 1, Against All Odds.
Yeah.
Yes, but then we go back to the cover.
Yes.
So there's a lamp, an alarm clock. Other people, they say, no, you need to set time so that at least when you say, okay, 03, I wake up, you set your time to 03 so that you build that culture, that you set your mind to wake up at that hour. It's very important. Most of the pupils, students, they don't even have time management. They study they study whenever they can. I'm telling you, whatever you find today, if it's mathematics,
so what
if
is
it's
the importance
English.
of being deliberate and having a plan and a timetable for study?
I believe studying is an art. It's an art. There's a way that you carry out yourself. So you have to have time management. It's important. You have to have all the books on your desk. You have to know which subject that you are going to read today, which subject you are going to read tomorrow, the other day. Everything has to be planned for. So in the book also there's what we call, I talked about strategy. Even for Capital FM, it's everywhere. For it to reach everywhere like the way it has reached, it's big like this, the way it is. It's because you took a strategy. There's no way you can just say, okay, analafi balance when there's no strategy. There has to be a strategy in place.
Now, let's get into the book itself. One interesting thing is that when I opened the first page, I found a quote, which you coined yourself.
Yes.
And you say that in the vocabulary of education, the phrase "thou student" does not exist. Everyone is equal before the eyes and ears of education. This is quite a radical statement because there are many people that have been called thou, impossible to teach, impossible to learn. How do you justify this statement in a world where every year we record thousands upon thousands of students that fail exams? They drop out of school. They are not best students. Their parents, their teachers, and sometimes even their parents call them down.
I think it's it's not a fact that people are down. It's not a fact. So it not being a fact, it means everyone is equal before the eyes of education. What do I mean? It all has to take strategy. It has to take how someone will study, because before you take up a course or before you take up a subject, you have to know yourself first. You have to know what works for you when you dive into books. You have to not, okay, I think I wake up, I should be waking up 01. I should be, okay, for me, I think I should be studying using a phone. No, for me, I should be studying using this. There should be something that makes you to devour information. So really, there are no DAO pupils. It is just the way that they get information. Others, for instance, you see there are others that you say, guys are a JOBA, but ariferu kan chanchina chitika. The reason behind that is probably it's just they are studying the wrong syllabus. We've seen people, job bad, then when the test, the exam comes, they flop. Why? Because of the wrong syllabus. Sometimes it's they are not doing it the right way. Okay, so calling someone Dao, it is not good, because God made us equal. So because of what people are now telling me that I'm Dao, I will say that, okay, I think it's true, I'm Dao. Then they will not work hard towards academic excellency. Even me, there's a time my friend could take me 6 hours, 18 hours, but he used to do better in class. So one day we discovered that his brothers and sisters were teaching him on how to go about some subjects. So he was coming out number 3, for number 32. So the time I discovered, I started studying. Then I started filling up the gap, such that by the time I was doing my grade 7, I did better than them. So it's not really about like, okay, this person is down. No. And I know there's a lot of stigma. A lot of people, they don't want to come out in the open to say, I can't do it better. I don't know how to study. They just think they can. That's why I wrote this book, because the time I was at NIPA, I started writing the book. A lot of people that are older than me, married with a lot of children, older children, they could say, but how do you manage to top the class, and then you are working, but then you are topping the class, you don't even get a study leave. How do you do it? So I was like, a lot of people are pressuring me. Okay, let me start writing this book. So that's how I took an interest to seal up that gap.
Now, if you could just, I guess, describe or give us a highlight of what people would expect if they were to read your book, like what could they look forward to learning when they read your book?
Okay. That's a very interesting question. The book has got a lot of nice topics. Apart from how to study, there are a lot of the topics like into the right career. That talks about first you have to do a self-discovery, and then before you go for the career, you have to know who you are. You have to know where your passion lies. A lot of people, they succumb to pressure to say go and study medicine, but just because they're academically intelligent, so they tell them to go and do medicine, but when they are there, they're frustrated. I think you've seen some of the people that are frustrated. They are in doing law, but they are frustrated. So what is important?
Nurses,
Yeah,
teachers.
So you have to be in a place where you marry the purpose of your life, the reason of your life, and your career. Others, they go because the labor market says pa marketing ichitika, so again you have to do something, even if it's not on the market, something that fulfills you. Then you go for the career that goes together with your life purpose.
Now,
And then
Yeah.
okay.
so I do have a question. We do know that people make jokes, say if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. So I just want to find out from you, because you're an author, obviously, and you have your book out. How do you think Zambia's reading culture is right now, especially among young people? Do you feel young people are reading enough and going out there looking for information?
The answer is no. I think 5% is reading in this country. So even the culture of the best student, I tackled there's a topic called cultivating a good reading culture. So there's a number of strategies on how we can raise the reading culture in Zambia. But how do I look at that? It's 10%. Reading, it has to be inspirational first it has to start as individuals. We read as individuals in homes, and then we read as a community, then we read as a nation. So now the issue that is happening is, okay, if the culture was really, really up there, I should see my colleague reading a book, at least a book or magazine or newspaper. When I'm on a bus, I should see my neighbor there reading. When I'm maybe in any queue, maybe I'm trying to buy some Zesco units in a queue, I should see my neighbor reading any type of book as they are waiting to get there. But that is not happening because that notion it is true. Okay, there are things that a lot of people, Zambian local authors, we have written books that can help people. There are a lot of books that can help people on how to go about their daily lives, like good health, anything that can help them. But people are not reading. They could rather be taught. Okay, for example, since you are usually on Facebook, I'm very sure, right? When someone is selling a shoe, um, what will cross your mind when someone says, okay, this shoe is 10,000 kwacha, and then the number is this. Then someone in the comment will say, how much is
How
the
much
shoe?
is the shoe?
You
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
that's just an
And
indicator that people are not reading.
just on that, on the issue of the reading culture, you've mentioned uh, technological advancements like Facebook, but I think what technology has also done is that I can carry 100 books on this device,
Very true.
but I can't carry 100 books in my bag and have
Exactly.
access to them and still
Mm.
be comfortable. That in itself is supposed to be an advantage.
Exactly.
But what we've seen is that there has been more use of social media platforms
Mm.
that provide some sort of entertainment.
Mm.
And even the kind of content that is there does not necessarily, help in terms of cognitive development.
Mm.
What mostly happens is that people, if they're reading a long story, then it's about gossip, about
Exactly.
a
Mm.
woman that
Mm.
killed the husband,
Mm.
and so on and so forth. How best can we use technology in advancing, in ensuring that we improve the reading culture? Because I can have 1,000 books on this device. I can read anywhere at any time, even if there's no power. The phone can have
Okay, now, yeah.
light. So tell us about that
Using technology.
shift from hard copy to soft copy.
It's a little bit difficult for me to answer that one because I'm the
Mm.
old, what do you call that?
The old school.
Turibakade, yeah.
Mm.
I love hard copy, but then for soft copy, um, I think they should be aware that, like I mentioned, it has to come with inspiration.
Yeah.
A lot of people probably they don't have the idea to say, okay, I think I can use a phone to do something better with it. Other people they make money using the phone, but
Yeah.
others they don't. So I think it has to do with first, before we get to I think technology, we have to have some kind of a movement. Like right now, there's a movement for entrepreneurship in Zambia. So everyone is talking about entrepreneurship. What can you do? Have a side hustle, business, what? And I think that's what we need to do even for books. I think. We need to have, there should be a wave of change like the way we had the wave of change during the campaigns and the elections. I think even for reading books, there has to be that wind. You feel it that okay, but okay, I think reading is interesting. Reading can help you to realize something. What's the importance? I think people haven't realized the importance of reading. Why is it important?
So I just want to pose a question. Do you then think that maybe this poor reading culture is as a result of our education system? I remember being in school and a lot of my classmates, I was at Lusaka boys, like we said earlier. That time it was, well, Lusaka High School, so it was
Yeah.
both girls and boys at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember every time during English, I don't know, Perry, I'm sure you recall that, during English, there was a time when you'd be like answering questions from a story.
Yes.
So we'd go upstairs and get the English books, and
Yeah.
our teacher would make us read out loud. And people hated English so much because you had to read.
Yeah.
You have to
And on
shake
top
like a
of
leaf.
it, you had to read out loud.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to find out, do you feel like, especially in government schools, because now we do know that there's free education, so everyone is going to have access to, free education up until grade 12. Do you feel the school system hasn't done enough in pushing people to read more books?
I think so, because we should see local authors, okay, going into school, being invited. I shouldn't go fighting by CDC. Oh, guys, my book. I go to Debs to have permission to go to schools to distribute my books. No, they need to invite us to say, okay, Charles, come and talk to the pupils here. They need inspiration.
Yeah.
They can't just read. When they come in contact with an author, they are reading the book. Probably we give them some free copies like that. They
Now,
need inspiration.
just on that, with regards to local authors getting the support and the attention that they deserve, when I was in high school, I did literature, and 90% of the books we read were from other African countries
Exactly.
and other countries in general.
Mm.
The one book I remember reading that was Zambian was Uneasy York by Dr. Kachinga Sichizia, and it should be one of the few that are actually Zambian
Exactly.
within the school
So,
curriculum.
Yes, yes.
What do you have to say about the fact that we need Zambian books to be incorporated within the school curriculum?
Thank you so much for that question. You see, our history has to be rewritten properly, because if you see, some of the things have been left out. So, in embracing our local authors, we will ensure that we have the proper history that is needed, more books that is needed. I think they don't trust us at Matama Zambians kuti valembe fyamano.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then um, we are passionate to convey information. We are passionate to write. So it's important that they also embrace us. Okay, it's important that most of the authors, their books, there are a lot of interesting books. I think you've seen the books that have come up, political books,
Yes.
history books. If you look at the kind of history that is there, if you go in high school, you find, and what do you call that, Zinjanthropus. How does Zinjanthropus help us? How does it help us?
Mississippi.
Yes, how? And you know, the most interesting subject is European history. Very sweet. When you are reading, it's like a book.
Yes.
It's like a movie that you are watching. But how come our own history? Look at Bismarck, the things that happened. Look at Hitler, the one who did the propaganda media by bringing in certain the book that he changed the whole system to make Germans to think that they are superior race.
Yeah.
So it's through that. It's through embracing local authors into schools that at least we'll see good change.
And before we move on to another question from Musansi, I'm very concerned about the narrative of the Zambian story and the African story. I mean, I think you've heard of the old adage that if the lion doesn't learn to tell his own story, the hunter will forever remain the hero of the story. What is the importance of Zambians telling their own story and having a sense of authenticity? Because if you look at, I mean, obviously there's an improvement in our movie industry. Obviously,
Yes.
writing cuts across all sectors.
Exactly.
Now, if you look at the movie industry, you can see a certain Zambianness when you watch the Mezi Magic, 1Z, and this. But I think there's a certain stage where you get to sit, say, oh, I think that looks American, or that looks South African, that
Very
looks
true.
like something that comes from Nigeria.
Mm.
How do we get that sense of authenticity? If I read Zambian books like Uneasy York and your book, I can see Zambian pictures. I know this is originally Zambian, but it has failed to penetrate through, for instance, the creative industry.
So how do we change that?
How do we change that?
I think we need some political will, a bit of it, not so much of it, but a bit of it, so that everything across Zambia, all institutions can embrace local authors, because it's very important. Like you said, the prince of being a Zambian cannot be felt if we are using other people's material or other writers from other countries. Why then should I explore another person's mind when we can explore ourselves? You know, so it's important that we embrace Zambia.
Now, just back to the book. We do know that in your book, You're basically trying to, help, students get better marks in terms of how they study, find better ways to study. So I just want to find out from you, what challenges did you face yourself as a student as you are studying that you've now given practical solutions to and you've recommended in your book?
Some of the challenges, I think, it has to do with how to make information an integral part of your mind. Okay, I believe when you have information in your mind, it stays in the subconscious mind. Yeah, ikala. It means even in your sleep, when they say 1 plus 1, you say 2. But if it's not 1 plus 1, ni one. That's why leakages come in, because you are trying to seal up the gap that the mind is supposed to feel. It's supposed to feel the right information. So the challenge that I had really coming all the way, it's how to make information an integral part. So to
Yeah.
make information that integral part of your mind, it has to take different kind of methods that you can use. For instance, I'll just pick on one that I wrote in the book. For instance, let's say formula naishupa okuingira muntu. Naishupa. You try all you can naishupa. What you do, just write it on a plain paper. On a plain paper, and then you stick it on the wall. It should be the last thing that you see before you sleep and the first thing that you do when you wake up, every day like that. Then
My
you see what will
concern,
happen.
I mean, I do have a concern on that point that you just raised. If you look at our education system, it's centered on memorization, remembering things, remembering formulas,
Exactly.
remembering the exact word in history, the exact
Mhm.
sentence, the years and the times and the numbers.
Yes.
I mean, for me as an individual, that in itself didn't work very positively, because I feel like I was able to actually remember things more that I understood.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of emphasis on, for instance, if I'm a good student, I understand things, but there are certain things that I can't remember or I can't memorize per se, and I'm unable to articulate myself in an exam.
Mhm.
The education system will call me down and they'll call me a failure and I'll drop out. And that, in a way, will undermine the possibility of me exploring my fullest potential.
Mhm.
What is your assessment of the Zambian education
Education
system?
system.
Do you think it really does
Um,
stimulate the young minds?
the education system, it's supposed to be revised. Okay. You know, a lot of these systems in other countries, they change, they revise them every maybe 3 years, 5 years. But for us, when was the last time?
Mm.
So it's what we need. We need an education system that goes by what is happening with Zambia now,
Yeah.
because the system we have, it's a bit behind. So we need the system to be more practical. What do I mean? I think it's important when a child in primary school, they show signs of being a scientist. They take up science subjects right through high school to university. That way you'll be raising a generation of geniuses. But then you give me 8 subjects,
Mm.
okay, of which others I will not even explore them. I did RE. I think RE is for those who wants to be pastors, right? Yeah, I did which one? Principles of accounts. Okay, it relates with what I did, business administration. But for others, you do principles of accounts, you do RE, but you end up to
Geography.
geography.
Literature.
Yeah,
Like for me, I can tell you that the only reason I went to high school was literature, but I was told to do these other
you
subjects,
see that.
and for some reason, I mean, obviously some of them, but I think it comes from the fact that she's striking a balance between meeting the demand for cognitive development, but not straining the mind to an extent where the student now becomes ineffective because of the load of subjects that they have to carry.
Yes, the the pupil has to be more practical. What does it mean to be practical? It means that you are preparing them for society.
Yes.
It means that what they are learning when they graduate, they will use that information, that knowledge in society.
Yeah.
They will not find it difficult to settle in, because what is happening is that when someone graduates, they have to run over the information and knowledge that they have for them to fit in. So it's very important that even the education system itself,
Mm,
it is leveled. What do I mean by leveled? It should be more helpful than
mm.
to be more like the way it is right now. It's, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
All right.
Anyway, I think due to time, obviously, I think this is going to be the last question. But finally, what do you aim to achieve with this book?
Well, I aim to motivate pupils, students, on how the best they can raise their academic performance. Because, as you know, a lot of people they say, "Ah, paper ni paper, but um, no, paper ni paper," but that's a notion for laziness.
Yeah.
You can say paper ni paper, but for me, when I got the 9 points, I used it to enter into employment, and then I was promoted using the same 9 points, and then I went to another company using the same 9 points. So when I got my other paper, it was just a supplement. Why? Because of academic excellence, which is very